You just want me to kind of... Okay. So basically, here's where we're at. We have basically a roster in place. We have 2 or 3 big decisions to make, and I guess I'll just talk you through the process.
Welcome back to Spring Make or Break, the Atomic Spring Training. The finale of this 6-part series, chronicling your favorite Atomics baseball players, ends now.
Oh, hi. Wow. Guys are right on time. Come on in.
In tonight's finale, we join Atomic's general manager Dave Snyder in his crappy hotel room as he discusses the outlook for the team's upcoming season.
Welcome. This is my HQ during spring training. Yeah, sorry about the hair. Just don't have time for a haircut these days. I can't really get one. Usually I'd be wearing a hat, but it's okay. So yeah, this is it. Why? Yeah. Why am I in a hotel? Yeah, I guess most GMs have a house in their spring training area, whether it's a vacation home or whatever. I don't know. I feel like there's a sense of keeping you on your toes if you're staying in a hotel. Like the guys, most of the guys, some of the bigger names, obviously. Staying in a hotel, staying on the facility. This could change. Obviously, after last season, thought maybe we wouldn't be back. I think it's just that staying in that hotel. I'm barely even unpack for the 3 weeks that we're here. 6 weeks actually, but I spend a little bit of time going elsewhere. You just want to stay on your toes.
Snyder's uncertainty about the upcoming season is certainly palpable. His underperformance last year has caused a bit of distress in the Atomics organization. Although the season definitely started with the draft process, Snyder's biggest decisions will come tonight as he trims his roster down to 25.
Roster, and obviously we got to get that down to 25.
Snyder's first decision will be a relatively easy one. First-round draft pick Tom Parkinson can't quite cut it in the bigs just yet and will be heading to the minor leagues.
His bat looked like it was big league ready right now. And we wanted to see some home runs. And let's take a look.
After cutting down his roster by 1, moving Tom Parkinson to Double-A, Snyder has 2 more decisions to make. Although the deadline's not for another week, Snyder chooses to make his decisions earlier to allow his players time to prepare for the upcoming season.
I like to have my team all but in place by that last week of spring training, kind of let the guys start to get into gear. So you're here on final cut night. It's always tough. It's always tough to make those choices. You're looking at so many different factors. You got to take in their spring training. The individual player itself. What did they do? Did they do enough this year? Are you looking at past performance because maybe, as a veteran guy and you don't really care about his swings right now, he's going to round into shape. But there's also some telltale signs of veterans that, maybe they've lost a step in the spring. Maybe they didn't quite come into camp, in as good a shape, and you're trying to make those decisions. Most of those guys are pretty much logged into the 40-man roster. You have some guys, early on we brought in Eric Blue. We brought in some young guys, see how they do. Sometimes it's better for them to get them off the team a little bit earlier so they're not dragged out into deeper, weeks of spring training thinking they have a shot to make the club, especially if early on that it's just not quite there yet. So, yeah, all of that combines, and it's tough. I mean, you look at fucking Rojas, my first year here, and I didn't look at the full picture, right? I looked at spring training. I waved a guy to let him go down to AAA because I thought he needed some time, and 3 years later he's an all-star. He's won a championship with Bob, and you're never going to be perfect in this job. A lot of it is taking the numbers and going with your gut and trying to find that balance, but yeah, that one still hurts. I think the state of this team, everybody kind of knows it, after last season and 44 wins. It's, we're not playing football, so every year is not your year. There's a process that takes place. So I don't know that the guys that, we have to waive right now or consider, sending down because they're out of eligibility or whatever. I don't think there's a lot of concern of them being scooped up. And I think everybody knows what we're building towards. I think that's the positive that we're taking away. There's a lot of youth. Some of that youth came to play early this spring. And that's what we're going to do. You're here, tonight for the final cut down. And I think I only have to make 3 decisions. We're pretty close. We have guys that we brought in. We have the core from last year. It's really only 1 or 2 question marks, and those are always the hardest choices. I'm not sure I understand your question. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. How you build optimism or after 44 wins. You do the best you can. I think you put the best team on the field that you have. You make that commitment for next year, the year after next, the year after next. That maybe this year was a minor setback. We were building in little bits at a time, and you don't usually see teams have 30 win changes. It happens. Sometimes you get really lucky and you're able to bring in a couple good free agents, but for the most part, teams build slowly, and maybe they fall apart quickly, but rarely do they build quickly. And I think that's the hope we have to hold on to, is that we can make those long-term gains and make those steps going forward. Yeah. Yes. I totally have learned from my past draft mistakes. I suck. I am bad. If I had to, interview for another position, that would be my weakness, right? And I think amateur drafting, as much as all the information is out there, it's still luck. I mean, you see on the internet, if you're paying attention, that some of these sports sites do redrafts redrafting the 2010 draft, redrafting the 2005 draft, because sometimes talent that you think is going to be talent doesn't pan out. And sometimes talent that maybe took a chance on that other people were passing on is the best player that you have. And so there's a lot of luck involved with drafting as well as just skill. But I know that that's not my forte, and I felt like if we could have a lot of more sure things early, and not get into those kind of middle rounds where there's still that talent available, but maybe it's not quite as easily identifiable, that we would have a little bit more success. And that's why we traded out of the number one overall spot. I really think that, in 5 years, we'll be saying that we won this draft. We were able to take two great position players in the first round, and I think part of that was we were looking for pitching, but in the position that we were in, you have to remember to say to yourself, what's the best talent? And the best talent when we picked was Acuna and Parkinson. Do we have a first baseman that's all-star, world-class first baseman? Absolutely. Riley Dupree is going to be with us for a while. Parkinson's an older guy, coming out of college. He may be up sooner rather than later, but there's always injuries that can occur. It's always nice to have more talent than not have enough. And I'd rather deal with that problem in 2 or 3 years when maybe they're both potentially all-star caliber first basemen and we have two of them, than have none of them. And Acuna, those stats are through the roof. The kid can play some ball. And I think we'll be very satisfied with that draft pick. Again, same deal. We have some talent in the outfield right now, but we're not looking for right now. If we can mesh those two, that's going to be great for us. And then, of course, you get into the second round, and we finally saw some pitching that we felt like was at the value of where we were picking. And I think having those 4 picks in the first 2 rounds allowed us to have that flexibility, that we weren't really going, man, we only have this pick, and then we don't pick again. We need pitching. So we were able to take the best players available because we gave ourselves that flexibility. And we came out of it with, a catcher that's looking like he's going to be our opening day starter. That when you take the picture as a whole, the trades we made and what we got, I'm really satisfied right now, and I hope history agrees with me. Yes, so you guys just want me, at this point to get to work. We got decisions to make. When's this air? I want to make sure I tell my guys before this goes out. Be a little awkward, but I don't know. We're the Atomics. We kind of play by our own rules anyway. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys. All right, so pitching. This is one of the tough things about what we do. Do we? How many relievers do we want to carry? What's our rotation look like? if you decide you want to carry X number of relievers, how many bats does that leave you on your bench? Those are all the tough decisions. I think the first thing I'm going to do, we're at we have 28 guys, so now we have 2 more players to cut down. This is where we talk through that. Kind of want to see what's your lineup. What are things shaping up as? Where do you think you'll need players down the line? Who's got an injury history? I think what we're going to end up with is carrying 5 outfielders, maybe 6, with 6 infielders, backup catcher, and then the pitching staff. So, I guess we'll just kind of talk through it right now. I need this last week really to figure out who's going to lead off. Last year Manny Lopez had a bit of a down year, but he does pretty good in that leadoff role. I think Jeff Lynch could do it, but he's got a little bit more power, and you kind of want to bat him either in front or behind of Raleigh, who's going to be batting third most likely. We've got Dave Nelson, who we brought him in as an old head, and he's been killing spring training. I think he's got something left in that tank. So, the way I see it right now, a potential starting lineup is probably Manny in left field, something like that. Jeff Lynch, I think, just because he doesn't quite have that speed, probably bats third. And then Dupree bats fourth. I think, with Slav and his numbers right now, he's kind of was a disappointment a little bit last year. I think he knows that. That on-base percentage needs to get up a little bit. But, spring training so far, he's batting .328 and getting on base at a .382 clip. That, with his speed, I think he's batting in the 2-hole. So I think that means Nelson's going to bat behind Raleigh. A little bit of a battle going on at shortstop here. I think my gut feeling is Mike Phillips is going to win it, but Ken Christian will stay on the roster as that left-handed bat. Eric Mack, I think, is going to be the odd man out. Defensively, he's a bit of a liability. He can really only play third base. We've looked at moving him around, and he struggles pretty much everywhere. And the only good defensive thing that he has, and he knows it, is his arm. I don't know that he makes the team to start. I think I'm going to go ahead and move him down to AAA, but he'll be our first call up if somebody gets hurt or we need an extra bat. So that gets us down at this point to 26. Now we're looking at kind of the outfield here, and it's interesting. Dave Groves is a left-handed bat. Last year, before the acquisition of Jeff Lynch, we needed those lefties. We basically had one playing every day, and that was Dupree. We do have a little bit more balance in this lineup, not by a whole lot, but I think we do have a few L's, both in the lineup and off the bench, which is going to be nice. So the question is, do you take the defense of Brent Edwards or the potential offense of Dave Groves? You're not really lacking in offense or in defense with Groves over Edwards, but Edwards got a cannon. He can play all 3 outfield positions. Groves is limited really to the corners. He can play some first base, but
Edwards kind of came around a little bit last season from the plate. Statistically, it wasn't his best year, but his on-base percentage was the best that he had. So getting on base, his ability to play all three positions in the outfield, I think, is going to give him the edge at this point. But we're going to look at our pitchers first before we make that final decision. And maybe we do carry 5 outfielders, so we'll see. Pitching, this is one of those where your Rule 5 can kill you. I think we're going to have Victor Dunlap. And I think Henry Moss is a shoe-in. I mean, I think those two guys are going to probably be our 1-2. David Logan is a young guy with a lot of potential. And I think just by the virtue of the fact that we were left without basically a pot to piss in with the pitching staff at the end of last season, he's going to be in the rotation to start. A guy like Matt Snell is having a great spring. Historically, he knows he's not the best guy out there. Last season's ERA was almost 9. So I can't really rely on him. He's 34 years old. He's not getting any younger. And, he could see some time. Juan Vega could see some time in the starting rotation if things went sour. But as I was saying, Christian Bentley here, we got him in the Rule 5. He's 24. He's struggling a little bit this spring so far. But we'll see what happens. He's got to be on the roster, so he's got to pitch. It kind of is a bit frustrating because you have a guy, like Lee Hill that had a pretty good showing this spring so far, but was in Double-A last year. Do we move him into the, two slots up basically, just to say that we have pitching, and I think it's safer not to at this point. So that leaves us with Wayne McDaniel rounding out that rotation. I think we'll probably try and break up the righties and lefties a little bit, but who knows? Bullpen-wise, again, spring training has been excellent to our bullpen. I think Mal Silver has earned his way onto the team for sure. I don't know that I'm going to have him close yet. I think Brian Wilson, who we signed as a free agent, is, a veteran guy that can fill that role most of the time, and maybe Mal fills it some of the time. Just kind of not to put him right in that pressure spot right away. It also gives us a bit of a 1-2 at the back of the bullpen. Two guys that we acquired last year, Stephen Miller and Andrew Murphy, both of them will be in the bullpen and ready to go. I mean, these guys, they've got a lot of potential. I mean, Murphy could close as well. The one thing that we have that's an issue is we're very right-handed dominant in the pen right now. There's not a lot of hope in the system of having too many lefties. Matt Moore struggled the hell out of everything for the last couple of years. He could come up, and then, of course, we have Lee Hill, who I think is more of a starter, but maybe he finds his way into the pen just to give us that extra lefty arm. We'll see what happens there. I think at this point, a guy like Andrew Martin, who is 23 years old, not really a superstar, maybe he goes down, and Matt Snell stays just because he does have that left-handed arm and he can do some long relief. Maybe we use him in matchup situations and try not to use him in too tight of areas. I think that's got to leave us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6
7 arms in the pen, which will be good to start if there's any injuries. And then, if things go south, maybe we bring up a bat and we let that play out. So I feel like that's where we're at. We're just looking to improve on last season. That's all. That's all you can really hope for. Historically, we were doing pretty good, and then last season, again, that's 44 wins. I'd probably put the goal at 70 this year. I think last year was an anomaly. I think when you look at our progression since I took over the team, we're steadily building. And then, kind of took a big jump with the 69 wins and then regressed, going from 58 to 69, an 11 win swing, and then a 30, was that a 25 run or game swing. I could see us bouncing back up, hopefully getting to that 65, 70 number. I think that would be a goal for us. I don't think it's playoffs yet, but I think that's the goal. 65 wins. So that's where we're at. There's not really too much else to be said. It's time to go play some ball. Yeah, I think we're good. Decisions have been made. We're ready. The team's going to be pretty much set this last week of the season, and we're excited. Thank you guys for coming and doing this. Appreciate it.